What if the biggest obstacle standing between you and success isn't your circumstances, your education, or even your competitors? What if it's the voice inside your own head? Every day, millions of people wake up with dreams, goals, and ambitions. Yet before they even take the first step, negative thoughts begin to whisper, "You're not good enough. I'll probably fail, others are better than you." And slowly, those thoughts become beliefs. But here's what winners understand that most people don't: success doesn't begin when you achieve something extraordinary. Success begins the moment you stop believing the lies that hold you back. Because winners are not people who never experience negative thoughts. Winners are people who refuse to let those thoughts control their actions. Today, we're going to discover how to remove negative thinking, break free from self-doubt, and train your mind to think like a winner. Because the quality of your life is determined by the quality of your thinking. And when you change the way you think, you change the way you live. Negative thoughts rarely appear all at once. They enter the mind quietly, often disguised as logic, caution, or realism. A person may believe they are simply being practical when, in reality, they are allowing fear and doubt to shape their thinking. The challenge is that most people never stop to examine the thoughts running through their minds. They accept them as facts instead of questioning whether they are true. Every human being experiences negative thoughts. No one is completely free from self-doubt, fear, worry, or insecurity. The difference between people who move forward and people who remain stuck is not the absence of negative thoughts. The difference is awareness. Winners learn to recognize negative thinking before it gains control over their decisions, emotions, and actions. Think about how many thoughts pass through your mind every single day. Some encourage you, while others discourage you. Some push you forward, while others hold you back. If you are not paying attention, negative thoughts can become automatic. They repeat so often that they begin to feel like reality. A person who repeatedly tells themselves they are not capable eventually starts acting as if it is true. A person who constantly expects failure begins to avoid opportunities that could lead to success. One of the most dangerous things about negative thinking is that it often sounds convincing. It doesn't usually scream. It whispers. It says things like, maybe you're not talented enough. Maybe you're too late. Maybe you're not ready. Maybe someone else can do it better. Because these thoughts sound reasonable. Many people never challenge them. They simply accept them and allow them to influence their choices. The first step toward removing negative thoughts is learning to identify them. You cannot change what you refuse to acknowledge. You cannot solve a problem you pretend does not exist. Many people spend years fighting feelings of anxiety, frustration, and disappointment without ever examining the thoughts creating those emotions. Every emotion begins with a thought. If you want to change how you feel, you must first become aware of how you think. Imagine someone preparing for an important opportunity. Before they even begin, a thought enters their mind. I'm probably going to fail. That single thought creates doubt. Doubt creates fear. Fear affects confidence. Confidence affects performance. Eventually, the person performs below their potential, and the result seems to confirm the original thought. What started as an assumption becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. This is why awareness matters so much. The moment you recognize a negative thought, you create distance between yourself and that thought. Instead of becoming trapped by it, you can observe it. Instead of accepting it as truth, you can evaluate it. Instead of reacting automatically, you can choose your response. Many people mistakenly believe that every thought they have must be true simply because it appears in their mind. But thoughts are not facts. Thoughts are mental events. They come and go. Some are accurate and some are completely false. Just because your mind tells you something does not mean you should believe it. Consider how often people underestimate themselves. They convince themselves they are not intelligent enough, attractive enough, experienced enough, or capable enough. Yet, when they finally take action, they discover they were far stronger than they imagined. Their negative thoughts were never accurate reflections of reality. They were reflections of fear. Fear has a way of magnifying obstacles while minimizing strengths. It focuses attention on what could go wrong instead of what could go right. It highlights weaknesses while ignoring abilities. It creates stories about failure before any real failure has occurred. When these stories go unchallenged, they begin shaping behavior. Questioning negative thoughts requires courage because it forces you to confront the assumptions you have carried for years. When a thought says, "I can't do this," Ask yourself, what evidence supports that belief? When a thought says, I always fail, ask yourself, is that really true? Or am I focusing only on the times things didn't work out? When a thought says, I'm not good enough, ask yourself, compared to what standard and who decided that standard? Often, negative thoughts collapse under examination because they are based on emotion rather than evidence. They are built on assumptions, past disappointments, temporary setbacks, or the opinions of others. The moment they are exposed to honest questioning, their power begins to weaken. Another important realization is that negative thoughts are often repetitive. The same doubts appear again and again in different situations. A person who fears rejection may hear that fear whenever they meet new people, pursue new opportunities, or share new ideas. A person who struggles with confidence may hear the same critical inner voice before every challenge. Recognizing these patterns allows you to see that the problem is not the situation itself. The problem is the mental habit attached to it. Mental habits become stronger through repetition. Every time a negative thought is accepted without question, the habit grows. Every time it is challenged, the habit weakens. Over time, this process changes the way a person sees themselves and the world around them. People who achieve extraordinary things are not necessarily born with extraordinary confidence. Many of them simply develop the habit of questioning the negative stories their minds create. They refuse to let temporary emotions define permanent beliefs. They understand that fear can speak, but fear does not deserve the final decision. The mind is a powerful tool, but it requires direction. If left unchecked, it often drifts toward worry, doubt, and limitation. By identifying negative thoughts and challenging them consistently, a person begins reclaiming control over their mindset. They stop becoming victims of every thought that enters their mind and start becoming active participants in shaping their own perspective. The more they practice this skill, the more they discover that many of the limitations they once accepted were never real barriers at all. One of the fastest ways to create stress, frustration, and negativity is to focus on things you cannot control. Many people spend an enormous amount of energy worrying about circumstances, opinions, outcomes, and events that are completely outside their influence. They replay situations in their minds, imagine worst-case scenarios, and become emotionally exhausted trying to manage things that were never theirs to control in the first place. The problem is not that challenges exist. The problem is where attention is placed. Your mind follows your focus. If your focus is directed toward things you cannot change, you will constantly feel powerless. If your focus is directed toward things you can influence, you begin to feel capable, confident, and productive. Think about how often people worry about what others think of them. They change their behavior to gain approval, avoid criticism, or meet expectations. They become trapped in a cycle of seeking validation from people whose opinions they cannot control. No matter how hard they try, they cannot force someone to like them, respect them, or agree with them. Yet countless hours are spent worrying about these things. A winner understands that other people's opinions belong to other people. They recognize that while they can control their character, effort, and actions, they cannot control how every person interprets them. The moment someone stops chasing approval and starts focusing on personal growth, a tremendous amount of mental energy becomes available for more meaningful pursuits. Another area where people lose control of their mindset is by obsessing over outcomes. They become so focused on the final result that they forget about the process required to achieve it. A student worries about grades. An entrepreneur worries about profits. An athlete worries about winning. A professional worries about promotions. While goals are important, outcomes are influenced by many factors beyond individual control. What remains within your control is preparation, discipline, consistency, and effort. When people focus exclusively on results, they often experience anxiety because outcomes are uncertain. When they focus on actions, they experience confidence because actions are within their power. Confidence grows when attention shifts from what might happen to what can be done right now. Imagine a person preparing for an important presentation. They might spend days worrying about whether the audience will approve, whether someone will criticize them, or whether everything will go perfectly. These concerns create unnecessary pressure because they involve factors beyond direct control. A more productive approach would be focusing on preparation, practice, research, and delivery. Those are areas where effort can make a difference. Life becomes much simpler when you separate what you can control from what you cannot. You cannot control the weather. You cannot control the past. You cannot control every obstacle that appears in your path. You cannot control the actions of others. You cannot control unexpected setbacks. What you can control is your response. You can control your attitude. You can control your choices. You can control your work ethic. You can control the standards you set for yourself. This distinction is incredibly powerful because it shifts attention away from helplessness and toward responsibility. Responsibility is not about blaming yourself for everything that happens. Responsibility is about recognizing where your power exists. The moment you focus on your sphere of influence, you stop wasting energy fighting battles that cannot be won. Negative thinking often grows from uncertainty. People become anxious because they want guarantees. They want certainty about the future. They want assurance that everything will work out exactly as planned. Unfortunately, life rarely provides those guarantees. There will always be unknowns. There will always be risks. There will always be factors beyond your control. The strongest individuals are not those who eliminate uncertainty. They are those who learn to move forward despite it. They understand that waiting for perfect conditions is often another form of fear. Instead of demanding certainty, they focus on preparation. Instead of trying to predict every outcome, they focus on taking the next step. Many people become trapped in endless cycles of overthinking. They analyze every possibility, every risk, and every potential problem. While planning is valuable, excessive analysis often creates paralysis. The more attention given to uncontrollable factors, the more difficult it becomes to take action. Progress requires accepting that not everything can be predicted. Successful people are not successful because they control every circumstance. They are successful because they maximize what is within their control. They show up consistently. They maintain discipline when motivation fades. They keep learning when others stop improving. They adapt when conditions change. They refuse to allow external events to determine their internal state. Challenges are inevitable. Delays will happen. Mistakes will occur. Unexpected obstacles will appear. The question is not whether difficulties will arise. The question is where your attention will go when they do. Some people immediately focus on blame, excuses, and frustration. Others focus on solutions, adjustments, and opportunities. Every moment spent complaining about something you cannot change is a moment taken away from improving something you can. Every minute spent worrying about someone else's choices is a minute that could have been invested in your own growth. Every ounce of energy spent resisting reality is energy that could have been directed toward progress. The human mind becomes stronger when it learns to distinguish between influence and concern. There are many things that may concern you, but far fewer things that are actually within your influence. Understanding this difference creates clarity. Clarity reduces stress. Reduced stress improves decision making. Better decisions lead to better outcomes. When your focus remains on your actions, your effort, your preparation, negative thoughts lose much of their power. Instead of feeling like a victim of circumstances, you begin seeing yourself as someone capable of responding effectively to whatever life presents. Your attention stays rooted in the present moment rather than becoming lost in fears about the future or frustrations about the past. The more consistently you direct your focus toward what you can control, the more resilient you become. Challenges still exist, uncertainty still exists, and obstacles still exist, but your mindset remains anchored in action rather than worry, responsibility rather than blame, and progress rather than fear. The way you speak to yourself matters more than most people realize. There is a conversation happening inside your mind every single day, and whether you notice it or not, that conversation influences your confidence, your decisions, your emotions, and your actions. Long before anyone else tells you what you can or cannot do, your inner voice is already shaping the limits you place on yourself. Many people struggle with self-doubt not because they lack ability, but because they have developed a habit of speaking to themselves in ways they would never speak to someone they care about. They criticize themselves for every mistake, magnify every weakness, and constantly focus on what they believe is missing. Over time, these messages become familiar, and familiarity often gets mistaken for truth. Self-doubt is not always loud. It does not always appear as complete fear or panic. Sometimes it appears as hesitation. Sometimes it appears as procrastination. Sometimes it appears as the belief that you need one more course, one more qualification, one more opportunity, or one more sign before taking action. It convinces you that you are not quite ready yet. It tells you that success belongs to other people and that you should wait until you feel more confident. The problem with waiting for confidence is that confidence rarely arrives before action. Confidence is usually the result of action, not the cause of it. People often assume successful individuals were confident from the beginning, but the truth is that many of them started with uncertainty. The difference is they did not allow uncertainty to stop them from moving forward. One reason self-doubt becomes so powerful is because the human brain naturally pays more attention to negative experiences than positive ones. A single failure can occupy the mind for weeks, while multiple successes are quickly forgotten. One criticism can outweigh 10 compliments. One mistake can overshadow months of progress. If this tendency goes unchecked, it creates a distorted view of reality. A person may accomplish many difficult things throughout life and still focus only on what went wrong. They may overcome challenges, develop skills, and achieve goals, yet continue telling themselves they are not capable enough. The issue is not a lack of evidence. The issue is the story being told about that evidence. Positive self-talk is not about pretending problems do not exist. It is not about ignoring weaknesses or convincing yourself that everything is perfect. It is about speaking to yourself honestly, constructively, and productively. It is about replacing destructive thoughts with empowering ones that encourage growth rather than limitation. Consider the difference between these two statements. One person says, "I failed, so I'm not good enough." Another person says, "I failed, so I have something to learn." Both people experience the same event, but they interpret it differently. One creates discouragement, while the other creates opportunity. One reinforces self-doubt, while the other builds resilience. The words you use internally influence how you interpret challenges. If every setback becomes proof of inadequacy, confidence will continue to shrink. If setbacks become opportunities for growth, confidence begins to expand. The event itself is often less important than the meaning attached to it. Many people unknowingly strengthen self-doubt through absolute language. They tell themselves things like, "I never succeed. I'm terrible at this. I can't do anything right." These statements are rarely accurate, yet they become powerful because they are repeated so often. The brain absorbs repetition. Whatever message is repeated consistently begins to feel true. This is why awareness of language is so important. Every time you catch yourself using limiting words, you have an opportunity to replace them with more accurate and empowering alternatives. Instead of saying, "I can't do this," you can say, "I haven't learned how to do this yet." Instead of saying, "I'm not good enough," you can say, "I'm improving every day." Instead of saying, "I'll never succeed," you can say, "Success requires time, effort, and persistence." These small shifts may seem insignificant at first, but they gradually change the way the mind processes challenges. The goal is not to create false confidence. The goal is to create realistic confidence based on growth, effort, and possibility. Imagine two individuals facing the same obstacle. One immediately tells themselves that the situation is too difficult. The other tells themselves they will find a way to learn and adapt. The obstacle remains identical, but their internal dialogue produces completely different outcomes. One becomes discouraged before making an attempt. The other remains engaged long enough to discover solutions. Your inner voice becomes especially important during difficult moments. Anyone can feel positive when circumstances are favorable. The true test of mindset occurs when things do not go according to plan. During those moments, self-talk either becomes a source of strength or a source of weakness. People who develop strong mental resilience learn to become their own coach instead of their own critic. A coach acknowledges mistakes but focuses on improvement. A coach provides encouragement while maintaining accountability. A coach recognizes potential even when results are not yet visible. When you adopt this approach toward yourself, setbacks become easier to navigate because your internal support system remains intact. Another important aspect of positive self-talk is recognizing effort. Many people only celebrate major achievements while ignoring the daily actions that create those achievements. They focus exclusively on the destination and overlook the progress being made along the way. As a result, they constantly feel behind, regardless of how far they have come. Recognizing effort does not mean lowering standards. It means acknowledging growth. It means understanding that every skill develops through practice. Every expert was once a beginner. Every successful person once struggled. Every achievement began with someone who was uncertain but willing to continue anyway. Self-doubt often tries to convince people that their current limitations define their future potential. Positive self-talk challenges that belief. It reminds you that abilities can improve, knowledge can expand, and confidence can grow. It shifts attention from fixed limitations to ongoing development. The stories people tell themselves eventually become the foundation of their identity. If someone repeatedly tells themselves they are weak, incapable, or unworthy, they begin behaving in ways that support that identity. If someone consistently reminds themselves that they are learning, growing, and becoming stronger, their actions begin aligning with that belief. Every thought you repeat is shaping the person you are becoming. Every word spoken internally is either building confidence or strengthening doubt. The voice inside your head becomes the soundtrack of your life, influencing how you see yourself, how you approach opportunities, and how you respond to adversity. The quality of that conversation determines whether self-doubt remains in control or whether a stronger, more confident mindset begins to take its place. Many people believe that success is created by a single breakthrough moment. They imagine that one big decision, one powerful opportunity, or one dramatic transformation will completely change their lives. While those moments can be important, they are rarely the true source of long-term success. Real success is usually built through small actions repeated consistently over time. The mindset of a winner is not created in a day. It is created through daily habits that strengthen the mind, shape behavior, and reinforce positive thinking. Every habit you practice is casting a vote for the person you are becoming. Whether you realize it or not, your daily routines are influencing your confidence, your discipline, your focus, and your ability to handle challenges. Positive habits build mental strength, while negative habits gradually weaken it. The results may not be visible immediately, but over weeks, months, and years, those habits create a powerful difference. One reason negative thinking becomes so common is because the mind is constantly exposed to information. Every day people consume news, social media content, opinions, conversations, and experiences that influence their perspective. If most of what enters the mind is negative, fearful, or discouraging, it becomes difficult to maintain a positive outlook. The brain absorbs what it repeatedly encounters. This is why successful people pay attention to what they allow into their minds. They understand that mental strength requires intentional input. Just as the body needs healthy nutrition to perform well, the mind needs healthy information to think clearly. The books you read, the videos you watch, the people you spend time with, and the conversations you engage in all contribute to your mindset. A person who begins each day by consuming negativity often carries that negativity throughout the day. Their thoughts become focused on problems, fears, and limitations. On the other hand, a person who starts the day with learning, inspiration, reflection, or personal growth creates a different mental foundation. Their attention becomes directed toward opportunities, solutions, and progress. Morning habits are especially important because they influence the tone of the entire day. The first moments after waking up often shape emotional and mental momentum. Many people immediately reach for their phones, exposing themselves to distractions, comparisons, and stress before their day has even begun. This habit places external influences in control of their mindset. Winners often approach mornings differently. They create routines that strengthen focus and clarity. They may spend time reading, exercising, planning, journaling, learning, or reflecting. These activities help establish a sense of purpose before the demands of the day begin competing for attention. Exercise is one of the most powerful habits for strengthening both the body and the mind. Physical movement does more than improve health. It improves mood, increases energy, reduces stress, and builds discipline. Every workout becomes evidence that you can keep promises to yourself. Every time you choose action over excuses, you reinforce a mindset of personal responsibility. Discipline is an important component of mental strength because confidence often grows from trust in yourself. When you consistently follow through on commitments, you begin believing in your ability to handle challenges. When promises are repeatedly broken, self-confidence weakens. Daily habits provide opportunities to strengthen that trust. Reading is another habit that contributes significantly to personal growth. Every book contains lessons, experiences, and perspectives that can expand understanding. People who invest time in learning expose themselves to ideas that challenge limiting beliefs and encourage development. Knowledge creates options. Options create confidence. Confidence supports positive thinking. Journaling is a simple habit that can also have a profound impact on mindset. Many people carry thoughts in their minds without ever examining them carefully. Writing creates clarity. It allows you to organize ideas, identify patterns, and gain perspective. Thoughts that seem overwhelming often become easier to manage once they are placed on paper. Gratitude is another habit commonly found among individuals with strong mindsets. Negative thinking naturally focuses attention on what is missing, what is wrong, or what has not yet been achieved. Gratitude shifts attention toward what already exists. It encourages appreciation rather than constant dissatisfaction. This does not mean ignoring ambitions or settling for less. It means recognizing that progress becomes more sustainable when appreciation and ambition work together. A person can be grateful for current opportunities while still pursuing greater goals. Gratitude creates balance by preventing the mind from becoming consumed by comparison and scarcity. Consistency matters more than intensity when building habits. Many people begin with enthusiasm, attempting to make dramatic changes all at once. They create unrealistic expectations, become overwhelmed, and eventually quit. Lasting change usually occurs through small actions performed repeatedly. A person who reads 10 pages every day will gain more knowledge over time than someone who reads an entire book once and then stops for months. A person who exercises consistently will achieve better results than someone who works out intensely for a short period before giving up. Small habits become powerful because they accumulate. The human brain responds strongly to repetition. Repeated behaviors create neural pathways that make actions more automatic. At first, positive habits require conscious effort. Over time, they become part of daily life. What once felt difficult begins to feel natural. This process allows productive behaviors to require less mental energy while producing greater results. The people around you also influence the habits you develop. Human beings naturally adapt to their environments. If you spend time with individuals who constantly complain, make excuses, and focus on negativity, those attitudes can become contagious. If you spend time with people who pursue growth, take responsibility, and maintain positive perspectives, their influence often elevates your own thinking. Environment plays a powerful role because habits are easier to maintain when they are supported by surroundings. A person trying to improve their mindset benefits from creating environments that encourage positive behavior. This may involve choosing better influences, reducing distractions, and surrounding themselves with reminders of their goals. Another important habit is reflection. Many people move through life without regularly evaluating their progress. They repeat the same patterns without considering whether those patterns are helping or hurting them. Reflection creates awareness. It provides opportunities to learn from experiences, adjust strategies, and recognize growth. Daily habits are often overlooked because their effects seem small in the moment. Reading for a few minutes may not feel significant. Exercising for a short period may not appear life-changing. Writing in a journal may seem simple. Practicing gratitude may appear insignificant. Yet these actions accumulate over time, gradually shaping thoughts, behaviors, and identity. The strongest mindset is not built through occasional motivation. Motivation comes and goes. Some days enthusiasm is high, while other days it disappears completely. Habits provide stability when motivation fades. They create structure during difficult periods and maintain progress when emotions fluctuate. Through consistent practice, positive habits become the foundation upon which confidence, resilience, focus, and mental strength continue to grow. Fear is one of the most powerful forces in human life. It has stopped countless people from pursuing their dreams, sharing their ideas, taking opportunities, and reaching their full potential. Fear convinces people to stay where they are, even when they know they are capable of more. It creates comfort in familiar situations and uncertainty around growth. The challenge is that growth and comfort rarely exist in the same place. Many people believe that winners are fearless. They imagine successful individuals moving through life without doubt, anxiety, or uncertainty. The reality is very different. Winners experience fear just like everyone else. They feel nervous before important decisions. They feel uncertainty when facing new challenges. They feel pressure when pursuing ambitious goals. The difference is not the absence of fear. The difference is their response to it. Fear becomes dangerous when it is allowed to make decisions. It is natural to feel afraid. It is human to experience uncertainty. Problems arise when fear begins controlling behavior. Many people wait until fear disappears before taking action. They tell themselves they will start when they feel ready, confident, or certain. Unfortunately, That moment often never arrives. Life rarely provides complete certainty. There is always a possibility of failure, rejection, disappointment, or setbacks. If someone waits until all fear is gone, they may spend years standing still. Progress requires the willingness to move forward even when certainty is unavailable. Think about how many opportunities people miss because they allow fear to decide for them. Some never start a business because they fear failure. Some never apply for better jobs because they fear rejection. Some never pursue meaningful relationships because they fear vulnerability. Some never share their talents because they fear criticism. In each case, fear creates hesitation, and hesitation prevents action. What many people fail to realize is that fear often grows larger when action is delayed. The longer something is avoided, the more intimidating it becomes. A difficult conversation becomes harder. A challenging project becomes more overwhelming. A new opportunity becomes more frightening. The mind begins creating stories, imagining problems, and magnifying risks. Action has a unique ability to reduce fear because it replaces imagination with experience. Many fears exist primarily in anticipation. They thrive on uncertainty and assumptions. Once action begins, reality often proves far less intimidating than the scenarios created by the mind. Imagine someone standing at the edge of a swimming pool, afraid to jump into the water. They may spend several minutes imagining how cold the water will feel. They may hesitate, overthink, and become increasingly anxious. Yet the moment they finally jump, the uncertainty disappears. The fear was strongest before the action, not after it. This principle applies to many areas of life. Public speaking feels terrifying until someone begins speaking. Starting a business feels overwhelming until someone begins taking steps. Learning a new skill feels difficult until practice begins. Fear often loses strength when action replaces avoidance. Another reason action is so powerful is because it creates evidence. Confidence is not built by thinking about success. Confidence is built by accumulating experiences that demonstrate capability. Every action taken despite fear becomes proof that you are stronger than your doubts. A person who avoids challenges rarely develops confidence because they never give themselves opportunities to succeed. Their fears remain untested. Their assumptions remain unchallenged. Their potential remains unexplored. Action changes this dynamic by creating opportunities for growth. Even when action leads to mistakes, valuable lessons are gained. Many people view mistakes as evidence of failure. Winners view mistakes as part of learning. Every skill requires practice. Every achievement involves setbacks. Every expert was once inexperienced. The path to improvement is filled with errors, adjustments, and lessons. Fear often tries to convince people that mistakes are unacceptable. It creates unrealistic expectations of perfection. It suggests that success should happen immediately and effortlessly. When reality fails to match those expectations, discouragement appears. The truth is that progress is rarely perfect. Consider how children learn to walk. They fall repeatedly. They lose balance. They struggle. Yet they continue trying because failure is viewed as part of the learning process. Adults often forget this lesson. They become afraid of looking inexperienced, making mistakes, or appearing imperfect. As a result, they avoid situations that could help them grow. Taking action despite fear requires a shift in perspective. Instead of asking, "What if I fail?" it becomes more useful to ask, "What if I succeed?" Instead of focusing on risk alone, it becomes important to consider possibilities. Fear naturally emphasizes negative outcomes. Growth requires acknowledging positive outcomes as well. Many opportunities contain both risk and reward. Fear directs attention exclusively toward risk. A growth-oriented mindset evaluates both sides. It recognizes challenges while remaining open to possibilities. This balanced perspective encourages action rather than paralysis. Courage is often misunderstood. Courage does not mean feeling fearless. Courage means acting despite fear. A courageous person may feel nervous, uncertain, or uncomfortable, yet they continue moving forward anyway. Their actions are guided by values, goals, and purpose rather than temporary emotions. Every act of courage strengthens future courage. The first difficult step is often the hardest because it challenges existing limitations. Once that step is taken, the next one becomes easier. Confidence begins to grow through repeated experiences of overcoming discomfort. Discomfort is an unavoidable part of growth. New skills feel uncomfortable. New environments feel uncomfortable. New responsibilities feel uncomfortable. Yet discomfort is often a sign that development is occurring. Remaining inside familiar boundaries may feel safe, but it rarely produces meaningful progress. Successful people learn to become comfortable with temporary discomfort because they understand its relationship to growth. They recognize that the feeling of uncertainty does not indicate danger. It often indicates opportunity. They stop interpreting nervousness as a signal to retreat and start viewing it as a signal that something important is happening. Another important truth is that action creates momentum. Taking one step often makes the next step easier. Progress generates energy. Small victories create motivation. Momentum develops when movement begins. Waiting for motivation before taking action frequently leads to stagnation, while taking action often creates motivation naturally. The most significant achievements in life are rarely accomplished through a single dramatic effort. They are achieved through repeated actions taken over time. Each action may seem small, but together they create meaningful results. Every goal is reached one step at a time. Every transformation begins with a decision to move forward despite uncertainty. Fear will always present reasons to wait, reasons to doubt, and reasons to stay where you are. It will highlight obstacles, exaggerate risks, and question your abilities. Action responds differently. Action creates learning. Action creates growth. Action creates confidence. Action transforms possibilities into reality. The individuals who think like winners are not those who never feel fear. They are those who refuse to let fear become the author of their decisions and who continue moving toward their goals, even when uncertainty walks beside them.